welcome to today's Rocksmith Developer Stream. I am your host and the community developer on Rocksmith, Doug Lilly. Thank you very much for being here. If this is your first time watching our stream or the first time in a while, again, you'll notice we're all at home now. At this point, that shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. That's, I think, just what we're all doing right now, just doing our work from home when we can. So welcome to today's stream. Today we have a couple of other guests from the studio who will be joining me very soon, and we have a couple of performances from DeathJohnson, who may be in the chat right now. Hello, DeathJohnson, if you're there. So yeah, we're also going to have Q&A throughout the stream, so if you have any questions, please reach out to UB Jurassic. That is Brian Turner. He is the community manager for Rocksmith. He is in the chat room there with you, or in the chat there with you. And we're going to have some giveaways, as always. Those are going to come later on the stream, so welcome. And right now, I would like to introduce our guests for today. We have joining us Akshay Balakrishnan, or Rakshay, as we like to call him, only on the stream, never around the studio or sort of personally. Also, Jared McAdams, game designer here in Ubisoft San Francisco. Welcome.
Hello. Hey, everybody.
I'm so glad to see your faces today. It's been far too
good to see faces.
It is good to see faces. Yeah. Welcome to the stream and this new format that we're trying out. How are y'all doing?
Doing good, hanging in there. I think.
Yeah, one day at a time, I think, is the strategy on this end.
It's a good one. I think a good one to have. Yeah. So I've been so far for the past few weeks since we've been in this format, and I'll say again, let the viewers at home know. Right now, this is happening live, unless you're watching unless you're watching it on demand. But if you're watching it in the stream right now, then we're live. If you're watching it live, it's live. That makes sense. Perfect sense.
If we're watching it live, it's live.
It's live. But we will have some pre-recorded segments later on in the stream, and then we'll come back live. I'll let you know when we switch. It's fine. So I've been kind of starting these things off fairly simply, fairly sort of generally with, over the past few weeks, what have you been listening to? Akshay, let's start with you.
Oh, gosh. I've been actually not listening to a lot of music. I've been kind of like, that's the sad thing. I mean, I've actually been watching a lot more like Twitch streams in general.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot more Twitch stream content out there. Not just like the people who have been kind of working as Twitch streamers professionally for a while, but yeah, people who were at offices and now are like, hey, why don't I just switch over? But like, when I do feel like music, I did some like cleaning up when this whole thing went down, and I found these sticky notes that I wrote. They're like little like time capsules of like songs that I was into.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And like I just like every so often I'll just load one up and be like, oh, that's what 2010 actually was into.
Huh. I did a sort of similar thing. I got rid of all my I didn't want to get rid of all my CDs, but I got rid of all the cases, and I just put the discs and the sleeves into the big binders. And when I was doing that, I found a lot of like mixed CDs from back in the early 2000s mostly. So there's been some time capsuling there as well. And it's time capsules that I didn't make necessarily. So they're even more like, oh, I should have listened to this band 12 years ago. Why didn't I do that? Jared, what about yourself? What have you been into music-wise?
You know, I've been mixing it up quite a bit. You know, just kind of putting things on while I work, and you know, it's a lot of musical comfort food, a lot of stuff that I know I like, or I know that I can endure for a long period of time. I have like my 80s playlist, and then I have my 90s playlist. I did kind of a fun thing last week where I started with, I had like some 90s songs. I had like Morphine, and I was, my idea was, okay, I'm going to go through and I'm going to add things to a queue, and then I'm going to look at similar related songs and add like the next oldest song I can find until I can, and see if I can go from like Morphine to Mozart. And and it took like 3-4 hours, you know. I mean, not a significant chunk of time, but eventually I got there. I was able to push it all the way back.
So what was sort of the general like path? Like what would allow you to step from one artist or song to the next when you're
Well,
going
I would
back?
look for what I would do is I would pick a song and then I would generate a radio station from that song, and then I would look through the list that was generated for the station and basically find the oldest song I could. So I went from like 90s indie punk to like 80s pop and to like 70s classic rock, and then to like 60s psychedelia, all the way back. I think Buddy Holly, I think, was a big turning point. Eventually, I got back to Buddy Holly through one of my playlists. And then I think Bobby Darin was a big pivot point. I was able to go from that to like some like from like 50s pop to like 40s jazz and Benny Goodman and stuff. And then I think somewhere in there I got a pivot point from the from some of that to some film music.
Okay.
And some Leonard Bernstein and like On the Waterfront, stuff like that. And that was my pivot point into the classical world.
So did you have like big leaps kind of once you got to the film? It was like larger and larger leaps backwards?
Yeah, and by that point, I was starting to get, once I got into some of the film music, I started to get like some early 20th century stuff, and I got like some Ravel and some Debussy, and then that was able to push back into like some Chopin. But it was actually, and then that was able to push back into some Beethoven. But making the jump from Beethoven to Mozart was actually the hardest one of all, because I was trying to get to a specific piece. I was trying to get to the Rondo alla Turca, which we have playable on guitar in our very own library, to bring it back home. And so it took me a really long. That was the hardest part of the whole thing, was making that last step.
Okay. Have you considered moving back forward to see, kind of like when you take a sentence and then you translate it into the language and then back and forth? Have you tried expanding out from Mozart to seeing sort of where you lead?
Maybe that's next up. Maybe that's what I'll do while I'm supposed to be working tomorrow.
And have you turned this into a playlist that is available?
I haven't, but that's a good idea.
That's a good idea.
Oh, to hear that. And anybody in the chat, if you've had the opportunity to sort of explore music around and you've heard something interesting and new to you, let us know. I'm kind of curious to see what people are now exploring, especially if people who listen to a lot of music are sort of trying different directions that they might not have. And just I'm interested in what sort of discoveries people have made out there in the world.
I've got a discovery. Sorry.
Yes.
You were gonna transition, and I stopped that.
No. We can sit right here for as long as
no, not that long. I just discovered a YouTube channel that I thought was really cool. It's the Ska-Tune Network. I don't know if it's new or not, but like this guy is doing amazing like ska covers and original music, and like plays every single instrument, it seems like, and like just sort of like mixes it all down. And like honestly, his cover of All Star is amazing, and don't knock it till you try it. It's actually it's a really, really good cover.
Speaking of not knocking it until you try it, have either of you listened to any of the Post Malone stream tribute to Nirvana that came out like this past week?
I've heard people talking about that.
I gotta say, I listened to it, and I do feel like he is and has for a long time been a legitimate fan. I think when he uses that type of vocal stylings, you can definitely sort of follow the trail from where he definitely listened to a lot of Nirvana as a youth. But it's interesting. It's I don't know how well known or popular Post Malone is here in the chat. And if you get less than kind things to say, you don't have to. You don't have to. But I found it really interesting. He played with Travis Barker and a couple of other people who I was unfortunately not familiar with. Yeah. But it's a pretty true to the original cover, like not a lot of expanding out and sort of incorporating what you might consider that Post Malone style in Nirvana. It's guitar, drums, vocals.
Is that grunge? It is grungy style.
Yeah. Okay. It's pretty true to Nirvana. So yeah, that's interesting to check out. I've seen a few different people making live performances. I saw a bit of, I forget the name of there was like a festival that they streamed on YouTube. It was all from like previously recorded concerts, but they brought them all together, and it might be the first time that some of these were sort of publicly available. But I got to watch the Gary Clark Jr. performance, which was amazing. They ended with "Come Together," which I thought they were starting with one of his songs, "Numb," which is one of my favorite of his. But it was "Come Together," and I think that was at least partially intentional.
Yeah, you think?
Because the song "Numb," that the riff that he sort of returns to in that, I can definitely see where he might have been inspired, and so he gets that same tone. It's gritty and wonderful, and I loved it.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
One of my favorite bands, Wolfpack, put out like a new tweet with like a song of their offshoot band, the Fearless Flyers, and I'm like, I haven't like looked into it to see if it's like a new album coming out or what, but like I'm very excited about that. Anything those bands put out, I'm usually very interested in.
All right.
I need to follow up on that.
Sounds good. And I think it's almost a quarter after. Before we since we didn't transition, we can talk about that later. Right now, let's go ahead and we're going to do our first giveaway of the stream. So this is going to be for one of 2 Ernie Ball prize packs. We're going to say goodbye to Akshay and Jared for now, but we'll see you in a little while. If you are in the chat right now, since we are live, you can win one of these Ernie Ball prize packs right now. Again, we will be shipping these out once we return to the office. We don't know for sure when that'll be, so it will probably be a little bit before you win your prize, but we are keeping all the names, we're keeping your information so that we can get it to you as quickly as we can once we are back in the office. But if you enter and win, you will win everything on your screen right now. It is 2 sets of guitar strings, 1 6-string set for your guitar, 1 4-string set for your bass, both regular Slinky. You're going to get a dozen picks for Ernie Ball. You're going to get 3 of the Spectrum Plectrum picks from us here in Ubisoft San Francisco. You're also going to receive a black Ernie Ball guitar strap, a package of Ernie Ball Wonder Wipes, and a peg winder from Ernie Ball. All of that can be yours if you win. If you win, UB Jurassic, that once more is Brian Turner in North Carolina. He will whisper you to get your information. He's going to get your name, your shipping address, and your telephone number. As always, we need all that information in order to ship your prize to you once we are able to ship prizes out. So good luck on that stream. And right now we're going to say hello to our first community guest of the day. This is a recording that was sent to us by DeathJohnson, who is, I saw in the chat, hello, DeathJohnson. Thank you very much for submitting that. He's got a couple songs, and we're going to say hello to a couple of our studio people as well during this, but I'll come in the middle of that. It's fine. DeathJohnson played some songs and had some really nice things to say. With the mixing, it is a little bit quieter, so you might want to turn up for that and then get ready to turn back down a little bit once it's concluded. But right now, let's go ahead and say hello to DeathJohnson, and we'll see you soon.
Hello, I'm DeathJohnson. I go by that on most platforms I use, the main ones being Twitch and YouTube. Right now, I mainly just stream music-related content with poor internet. I do plan to bring more variety back to my stream once I can get more reliable internet, but I don't expect that to be anytime soon. So today I'll be playing bass on a couple of songs. For my first song of the stream, I picked the Bees song, Juice, so I'll get right into that and talk about it a bit after. To get into why I picked this song, it was a fairly easy call to me. I knew I wanted to showcase one of the Japanese songs in the library because I really appreciate that some Japanese music is available. I'm interested in both learning music and learning Japanese, so combining the two is naturally appealing to me. Picking the band from there wasn't too difficult. I was first introduced to the band through Rocksmith, and it became a favorite of mine. They currently feature some of my favorite musicians, and they worked with some of my other favorite musicians in the past. I'm not generally all that big into vocalists, but Koshi Inaba is an absolutely legendary performer. So to pick this song specifically, I did have it narrowed down to either Juice or Giri Giri Chop. They're both great rock songs and favorites of mine, but I figured I'd do myself a favor here and go with the simpler one to play.
Hey everybody, Dan Amrick here again, and this time I want to show you a little modification that you can make to your instruments, especially if you're a bassist. This is actually a bass modification that does the golden rule for me, which is don't permanently destroy anything on the instrument. Don't put any new holes in an instrument if you ever think that you might want to sell it. I don't really want to sell my bass. This is a beautiful rock bass that I've had for several years, but I don't necessarily like resting my thumb on the pickups. I wanted one of the finger rests that you can do, but of course, you're supposed to drill those into the guitar. Well, I don't want to drill it into the guitar. What are my options? I found a pretty clever hack online. Instead, I took this, which is made of wood, and I painted it so that it sort of recalls the color of the bass. I replaced one of the pickguard screws with a tremolo screw. Now, if you're used to Fender-style instruments, the longer screws that you would use to put in a Stratocaster bridge, that's about the length that I used. And I just took out one of the pickguard screws and put a longer screw through this single point thumb rest, and then it was fine. I just tightened it down. I got it into the angle that I wanted it. This is made of wood, and it has one single screw hole in the middle of it. Some of those have two, and I didn't want to do that because I didn't want to put two screws in there. This one, I didn't even put any new holes in there, but I get a really nice, comfortable place for me to put my thumb when I'm playing. It just matches my style, and it was a couple of bucks. I actually ordered it from China, and I just had to wait for a while for it to show up. I hit it with some spray paint, I hit it with some clear coat, and then I put it into use, and it's been there ever since. I just really, really like it. You can do this on any guitar, any bass guitar that has a pickguard. If you find one of these thumb rests that has a single center screw hole, you could make this. Maybe you're handy with wood or plastic, or 3D print this even if you want. As long as you do it with a central hole rather than two on the side, you can go straight through, replace a pickguard screw, and boom, instant thumb rest. If you ever get bored of it, or you don't like it, or you want to sell it, or whatever, remember where you put that original pickguard screw, throw it back in there, and you're back to stock, and nobody is the wiser. So, just a little handy hint. Change the way that you play, see if it fits, and if it doesn't fit, you send it back, and it's all good. That's my tip for today. Hope everything's going well with you. Keep playing, keep practicing, and I'll see you next time.
Oh, and welcome back. I've been talking to myself this whole time. Who knows what I was saying? We'll just go ahead and we'll start right now. I want to say thank you to Dan Amrick for showing us how he installed that thumb rest on his bass. I haven't had one since the first bass that I played, but I do sometimes miss it, especially if I have especially pointy pickups that I have to contend with. And I want to say thank you as well to DeathJohnson for the first of his two performances, especially with that the interesting improv there at the end. So thanks to both of you for that. Right now, we're going to give away 5 copies of the Night Ranger song pack for Steam. So if you didn't pick it up when we had the Night Ranger stream a few months ago, but it seems like years ago, now is your chance. You can pick it up. Please listen to what UB Jurassic says in the chat for your chance to win one of 5 copies of the Night Ranger song pack on Steam. Some classic 80s sort of arena rock. You get your shred on with 2 very different styles of that type of guitar playing. Interestingly enough, in the lead and rhythm, it's interesting to check out. So good luck on that. Right now, we're going to go back to some pre-recorded content. We're going to say hello again to DeathJohnson as he plays his second song, and we are after that going to visit with Greg Studley while he talks a little bit about the song that you are going to now hear. So take it away, DeathJohnson, and we'll see you back live right after that.
Hello again. For my second song, I went with Rush's Headlong Flight. It's my all-time second favorite Rush song, and it's a really important song to me. I'll get into that story after the song. The story of how I got as into music as I am now starts back in 2013. Basically, I went to a Rush concert. It was an incredible experience and very inspirational to me. Deciding that I wanted to get into actually playing music, I bought an instrument shortly after getting back home. That instrument was the bass, mostly because there wasn't really any way I was going to fit a drum set in here. Once I had a bass, one of the first things that came to mind to try to learn was the Headlong Flight intro. It really didn't go well, as you might expect. I was embarrassingly quick to give up because if I couldn't play a Geddy Lee bass line on the first day, clearly the instrument was just too hard for me. So it stayed mostly in the closet for a while. Then in early 2014, Rocksmith came into the picture for me. I don't remember exactly how I found it. It might have just been a Steam recommendation, but in reading the store page for Rocksmith 2014, it seemed extremely appealing. What definitely sold me on it, though, if I wasn't sold already, was the availability of a Rush song pack and Headlong Flight available as a single. I almost bought it on the spot, but needing the cable, I put it off to buy it in a store the next day instead. It didn't take long for me to get hooked to the game. Thanks to the dynamic difficulty, I was able to play Headlong Flight on the first day. Sure, I was only playing maybe one note every few seconds and doing poorly at that, but it was unquestionably fun. And because it was fun, I was able to keep up with practicing on the bass and get through that boring phase where you can't really play anything yet. Now I can pick up the instrument and have fun with it whenever I want, even outside of Rocksmith. It certainly wasn't an overnight transformation, and I've definitely spent a fair bit of time working on Headlong Flight specifically over the years, but I've become a much better player than I ever thought I would be. Now I'm even trying to tackle the songwriting side of things a bit. I have a SoundCloud account under DeathJohnson where I upload what I've finished. Results so far haven't been great, but I'll keep working on it, and I plan to even use some of my own recorded bass playing on songs in the future. It's obvious to me now that music is going to continue to be a big part of the rest of my life, and it seems unlikely that I would have gotten to this point without Rocksmith, so thanks for a great game, and thanks for having me on the stream.
What's up, everybody? Greg Studley here from Rocksmith. That was a little bit of Rush's Headlong Flight, little like interlude they have in the middle of the song. I wanted to kind of extract this part of the tune to talk about Rush's use of timing. So Rush, great prog band that is, really notorious for their use of using things like interesting time signatures. So here they happen to be using not just 4/4, though you could arguably count this all the way through in 4/4. But the way I like to think of a section like this is in groups of either 7 beats or 8 beats. And when you line things up in those kind of groups, you'll find that things start to feel like they're cycling in the right spot, meaning that like beat 1 is the start of a new cycle of what you're playing. And 7s and 8s normally do it. So the way that this will work here is a sequence of 7-7, 8-8, 7-8-7. Once again, that number is 7-7-8-8-7-8-7, not my phone number. So the idea is, when you break these into sequences, it actually starts to make more sense than just hearing it as a slew of notes. So what's the big difference between the 7s and the 8s then? A 7-beat sequence will start off with 2 hammer-ons. That's how you know it's a 7. An 8-beat sequence, on the other hand, will start off with 3 hammer-ons. That's where the extra beat comes from. So a full 7-beat sequence is this. A full 8-beat sequence is this. So if you did 7-7-8 as the song, as the section starts out. Now, I'm playing it pretty quick here. I'm kind of keeping it, close to the speed of the tune. But what we want to try and do is understand this. And sometimes to understand this stuff, you really do have to slow it down quite a bit, like to analyze. It's okay to analyze music at a slower tempo than it's actually played. What we're going to do is we're going to keep it at full speed for now, because we kind of are already kind of in the analysis phase of this, but we're going to move into like the comprehension phase of doing this and understanding it at full tempo. Now, if full tempo is too much, go into riff repeater, slow it down, use it to your advantage. So I've got this little sequence here in riff repeater all set up, and we're going to take this and count it. Now we're going to count at full speed, so the number is going to go by pretty quick, but just remember that same number sequence, 7-7-8-8-7-8-7, and see if you can line it up all the way through. Here's how you count through it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now you may have noticed that I wasn't always counting 7, because 7 is pretty hard to get out quickly when you're speaking it. So sometimes when you're counting in music, it's actually just better to use sen. It's a good little counting trick for you. And so if you were to count this in 4/4, you probably would find that, yeah, you could keep the numbers going, but the music doesn't make much sense anymore. But using this sequence, it seems like there's some rhyme and reason to why things are landing as they're landing. And, oh, okay, there's some logic in place. And this isn't just everybody going, well, let's just throw something, I guess we all just played an extra beat there. It's like, no, it's organized. And it's organized in a very specific way so that every time they played it, they all knew exactly what they were supposed to do because it's dictated for them. They kind of figured it out ahead of time. And so when you're analyzing music that's complex like this, you can do the same thing and try to comprehend, okay, well, how did they come up with this? And Rush is a great band to do this kind of analysis with. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to put it back in the riff repeater. Well, it's already there. But I'm going to start riff repeater again, but I'm only going to count beat 1. This will let you see if you can, count the sequence on your own, comprehend these patterns of 7 beats and 8 beats, and see if your beat 1s continue to line up with my beat 1s as I'm going to be counting all the rest of it in my head. Let's check it out. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Did you get it? Were you counting? I couldn't hear you. Okay, that's besides the point. All right, I'm going to end this up by, the way that we should always end this, which is, I'm going to go ahead and play it because it's a pretty cool riff. See if you can count it while I'm playing it. See if you can play it. Remember, comprehending what you're playing makes a huge difference in your musicianship. And so that's why I'm kind of stressing this on a song that gets a little complicated like this one. without further ado, I might have messed up a little bit there, let's be honest. But that's the idea of how to play through it. So, again, anytime you're messing with prog-style music, you're going to find this kind of stuff. So, dive into it, see if you can figure out how it's all being counted and comprehended around the beat, and enjoy yourself. Stay safe, everybody.
And welcome back to the live portion of today's Rocksmith developer stream. I am, once more, Doug Lilly, the host and community developer on Rocksmith. Once more, I want to thank Greg Studley for giving us another excellent tutorial vid. And DeathJohnson, thank you once again for submitting those videos, for those incredibly kind words, for the fun improv. And if you're in, I saw that you're in chat. If you want to let people know what your SoundCloud page is, feel free to do so. If you don't want to do so, I understand. Either way, it's up to you, but the floor is yours. Let's say hello again to our chat guests for today, Akshay Balakrishnan and Jared McAdams. Hello.
Hello. Hi. Turn it back on.
Oh, Jared's almost with us. There he goes. Welcome back. So I had, during DeathJohnson's last performance, or right after, he was talking about sort of what made him want to learn an instrument. I now pose that question to the two of you. Was there a certain song, a certain performance? What was it that made you first want to grab a guitar or a bass? Or if guitar or bass wasn't your first pick, whatever instrument was?
I went first last time, so Jared, you go.
Jared.
Man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think I had the same thing that a lot of people have. I don't know, maybe not, but maybe I'm projecting. But I think when you're 12 or 13, you kind of like, yeah, I should play the guitar. And I asked my mom for a guitar for Christmas and got one. It wasn't really part of a whole a decision at that point that's what I wanted to do or anything. Now before that, I'd been in the marching band at school, and I played alto saxophone, and I took some piano lessons and things, so I had some background in music already. But again, it wasn't like a life mission kind of thing, just something to do. But then through high school, I was in bands and had friends who were musicians and things, and I think that's probably the case for a lot of people. You kind of get into the social aspect of it, and that focuses you on the musical aspect of it, and then you become fascinated by that, and then it kind of snowballs from there. So that was kind of my experience. And then go ahead.
No, I was just gonna ask, was that friend of yours sort of a coach in guitar, or was it just, that's a cool thing and I want to do that thing?
Yeah, so it was definitely me and a buddy who we had been good friends for a while, and we were in band together, in school band together, and he and I had an acoustic guitar, and we decided we were going to start a band. So he got an electric guitar, and I got an electric bass, and we teamed up with this other guy who was going to be our singer, and we would just get together and try to figure out songs. And sometimes we would buy guitar magazines and try to learn songs from those, or sometimes we would try to make things up, and and then we would play like school talent shows and things, and over time, some of us kind of stuck with it and got super into it, and some of us kind of shifted things, and the band lineup kind of changed and bifurcated a few times, and by the end of it, that kernel had sort of blossomed into 6 or 7 bands over the course of the 4 years of high school.
Yeah.
And it was your origins with saxophone. Is that why you started your recent sort of family tree of music with Morphine? Because look, if you want a rock band with some wicked saxophone, Morphine is the band to listen to.
For real,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, no, I
Put
think
that together.
I'm sure at the time, when so morphine for me would have been like freshman year of college.
That
And
sounds. I mean, that sounds right.
Yeah.
And fretless bass. Whoa. Wow. All right.
Yeah.
Damn.
So yeah, I was, and it was also the Dave Matthews era. So there, the saxophone really had a resurgence in popular music right around that time.
It showed up in a lot of Tom Waits of that era, I think.
Yeah. So I was, and I was at that point. By that point, I was going to music school, and playing saxophone in school and other instruments. So yeah, I think that the saxophone was always there, and I still have one, and I still play it from time to time. But my embouchure is pretty weak, so I can't really hang the way I used to.
I understand. I haven't tried a tuba in over a decade, and I can't imagine it would sound great.
Yeah.
I'm trying to play one right now. Akshay, what
Hi.
about you?
Yeah,
Hello.
it's kind of a similar thing actually. So like as a kid, I did do piano lessons for a little bit, but in school, I was lucky enough to be in an area with a good like public school like music program, and
Yeah.
so I was just like in everything I could possibly join in,
Right.
and that was a lot of fun. And I think around high school, I started getting like really more interested into like jazz music. That was like easily my favorite musical activity. Was the jazz band, and I was playing baritone saxophone at the time, which
Yeah.
I haven't played a saxophone in so long, and now I'm too scared to go back and be like, just come to terms with how bad it's all become, how little I remember. But yeah, I remember that was probably in that jazz band was like when I could listen to the bass part of the bass player
Mm-hmm.
and how that guy kept messing it up. And I was like, I could do it a lot better if you just let me play bass guitar.
Yeah.
I didn't have one, so that was kind of a problem. But like, yeah, I also got my first bass as like as a present from my mom. It was like one of those bass amp combos.
Yeah.
And like those like super cheap ones, the starter packs. It's like when quality is definitely not the priority there. I still have that amp actually. The bass guitar is long gone, but the amp's still kicking. It's still pretty good. And yeah, so like I got super interested in bass, but like it was not. I didn't do structured learning with it, and that was kind of a mistake. I wish I took the time and the investment into taking lessons. I feel like I would have been a lot further along than I am now if I did that.
I think I had a similar start because I switched to bass for jazz band in junior high, and I just used the school's bass. That it was an old Peavey, I think. And then I didn't get my first bass was also a gift from my mom, and it was a 5-string because I listened. It was mid '90s. There was a lot of very low tuned stuff going on, and I was listening to a lot of that in the '90s. We got some answers to what some of our viewers have been listening to over the past few weeks. If I can find that, I'll pull that back up. So I'm on the wrong page. And feel free to jump in and talk about these. So Peterbot 2000 has been listening, has been hung up on Chet Baker lately.
Cool.
Tony Raleigh has been listening to Screaming Females. Got the Screaming Females album with Rotten Apple on it. And has been digging that one. Demalion, hopefully I'm not messing up any of these names, said Gilstott Heron from a Nordwire interview. Elisa Rockdock, hi Lisa, has been obsessed with the new Fiona Apple, but also the Beyonce Megan Thee Stallion Savage remix. I have not heard the new Fiona. Fiona Apple is an artist who. What?
Sorry, I didn't know that.
Beyonce and
remix. Okay.
Yeah, I did not either.
Okay,
I need to listen to the new Fiona Apple. Fiona Apple is an artist that I should have listened to in the '90s, but didn't, and I kind of want to go back and revisit now. But I've heard
too cool back then.
I was. It wasn't aggro enough. I needed her to be angrier, or just
right.
She wasn't yelling about things. I mean, she was probably.
I felt like she was stealing David Blaine from me. I resent her.
Okay, that's fine. And CJ Blanford has been listening to the Blade Runner 2049 original soundtrack. Goldfinger's self-titled. Goldfinger also did a stream recently, right? Did a live performance. Am I making that up?
Did
I
they
think
really?
that's a thing.
They
Okay.
did.
So
Yeah,
yeah, that's going on.
Confirmation.
Kings of Convenience, Diesel Boy, and a bunch of other random stuff.
Kings of
And
Convenience. Wow, haven't heard about them for a while. Wow. Okay.
and, Toy Machine SH has been listening to said Tom York played a new song on Fallon last night, which so I'll probably go back and check that out soon. And then DeathJohnson said he's mostly been listening to and watching the concert footage recently uploaded by the Bizou YouTube account. So the first band that he played on today's stream, I guess, has released a bunch of footage recently. I think Radiohead, speaking of Tom York, is also doing a thing where they are releasing old concerts, like old live shows, to YouTube, like from their vault to let people watch. I think a lot of artists are just trying to help people find some novelty, find new things, new interests to do right now, which I appreciate as a listener.
Yeah, totally.
We're talking about let's go back to your bass, Akshay.
Okay.
Talking about funk. So I know you prefer to play funk. Is that accurate, or is that just a assumption?
So right, when I was like forming this musical opinion, this was like the bass line specifically were the most interesting bass lines that I would hear from like all the other genres of music. Like, yeah, Nirvana was hot, and like there's lots of pop and stuff, and like I was never super caught up with pop music because I also was not pop, but but yeah, and I would try to listen to a variety of things, and like so you're like, yeah, these bass lines, like what is this guy doing? Oh yeah, this is great. And like I would want to try and do that, and so that's a lot of where my interest in bass.
Do you remember the first song that you tried to learn on bass?
Oh my goodness. No, but
if you were to have the narrative, what song would you have picked?
It would be
to be the first song that you learned on bass?
I think it was like the one that like for some reason sticks out of my mind, at least around that time, was Tower of Power's Squib Cakes. Like that it's a very long song, first of all. I was like, wow, songs can be that long? Whoa. But like it has so much personality and such a through line, and even though the song is so long, you don't get bored of it. You don't get bored of a lot of things, even like through all the solos and like everything. Like it was just super I remember that leaving a big impression for me. Yeah, that's the big one. I wish I could remember which one I like sat down and tried to remember how to play. We also had like talent shows and bands that formed, and like there was one like group of friends had their own band, and I wasn't invited, mostly because I didn't advertise that I was like learning the bass and like wanted to be part of it. But like I remember standing in for like during a rehearsal of theirs because the regular bassist was sick or something. Like I was trying to like that was like the big time for me. This like rehearsal thing. It was like, oh god, don't mess this up. this 5-5-5-7-7-7-5-5-5. Like
get it together.
It's like I might have been Fountains of Wayne song or something. Something like that. I can't remember which song that was. I'm gonna try to remember. I'm gonna remember like 3 a.m. tonight.
Text me. I'll have my phone muted. It's fine. It won't wake me up. Jared, do you remember the first song that your like group of friends band tried to learn?
I remember distinctly we played Alive by Pearl Jam in the talent show one year. I remember spending a lot of time on that one. I remember Summer of '69 by Bryan Adams was one of our early, when we realized that if we were gonna like actually we would play like dare rallies and things like that, and so we knew we had to play music that people would recognize.
Yeah.
And so when we got into the cover scene, it was a lot of grunge, a lot of like Stone Temple Pilots and Nirvana and Pearl Jam with some like 80s like anthem rock, some John Lennon thrown in.
I'm awash in embarrassment all of a sudden because I like dredged up something from high school. Oh, that I need to now share.
Oh no!
You brought this out of me. It was
yours.
it was one of those talent shows, and me and a friend were like, okay, we've both been learning guitar. Let's learn guitar and learn how to play a song. And the song we chose was Wonderwall, and I was like, oh goodness, oh no. It's like, oh okay.
Did you say the line?
It gets worse. No, so well, it gets better. So like we're both practicing, but with like I remember it wasn't like regular because we had like other extracurricular things happening. But one thing was clear was that my friend was getting better and like getting more practice time in, and I wasn't. And like he had like a very strict, like a stern chat with me and be like, look, all right, so like, how about I play this thing and you get like backup vocals and percussion? I was like, yeah, all right, that makes sense. That's all right. And it just snap cut to like being on the stage and being like, what the fuck am I doing with this? Oh, what the heck? What am I doing? No,
what the heck is going on here?
What the heck? The heck and deck. I just remember the being awash in shame.
Yeah,
Wonderwall, shaker, and backup vocals.
Oh
and
no!
It's just.
I mean, Dad just mentioned Wipeout. Wipeout was a go-to for us in the early days.
I'm so sorry.
You have to put the work in.
Yeah,
you have to put the work in.
You really do.
You can't be complete. You can't think I'm good enough to play this. You got to put the work in. You can always be better.
Yep. Next thing you know, you're playing Shaker on Wonderwall.
Yeah. And it's not.
The point of all of this is that we've got to get the Studio SF wind ensemble going.
Yeah.
Man.
Can somebody get me a tuba or sousaphone?
On it.
Cool. That's a promise, and we're gonna end there. So thank you both. Oh, actually, before we do go, I want to point out actually your hat.
Yes.
It's an Assassin's Creed hat. Why did you choose to wear that hat today?
Fine Ubisoft property that has just announced a new game, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, I believe. I haven't actually seen the trailer yet, but I've heard good things about it. Yeah. Yep. We're going Viking.
All right.
I'm pretty
All
excited.
Right.
just that pitch. I want to play more. I want to see more. Yeah.
All right. Thank you both very much for hanging out today and talking music a bit. Right now, we're going to do our final giveaway for the stream. So we'll say farewell to Akshay Balakrishnan and Jared McAdams. Thank you. It's very good seeing you again.
Yeah.
And now, any parting words, or you just want to wave goodbye? I didn't plan this part very well.
I'm gonna take my F-bombs and just turn off the camera and go home.
PG-13, we can get like one per season or something.
We got one. We got our one.
And I'm gonna go have a little chat with my daughter who's sitting over there.
Okay. Explain what those words mean and why you shouldn't say them. Well, thank you both very much. And right now, if you're in the chat, please listen to what UB Jurassic is saying for your chance to win the final Ernie Ball prize pack of this stream. If you win, you can get everything that is currently on your screen. That's going to be 2 sets of guitar strings, 1 4-string set for your bass, 1 6-string set for your guitar. If you don't have a bass or guitar, if you only have one but not the other, they'll keep them around. We're fine. Right. Also, you will get a dozen picks from Ernie Ball. You'll get 3 Spectrum Plectrum picks from us here on the Rocksmith team. You're going to receive a black Ernie Ball guitar strap, which will also work on a bass. You're going to get a package of Wonder Wipes, also will work on a bass, a peg winder from Ernie Ball, and those will be sent out as soon as we are back in the office. So please listen to what UB Jurassic is saying in the chat. If you win, first off, congratulations, well done. You are going to get a whisper from UB Jurassic. We'll get from you your name, your shipping address, and your telephone number. We do ship internationally. If you are not in the U.S., though I do ask that you break up your address line by line to make it as easy on me as possible. So that brings us to the end of this week's developer stream. Thank you all for being here. I hope you like this format that we sort of found ourselves in. I want to say a special thank you to DeathJohnson for being here. Again, great playing, and your words very kind, and it means a lot to all of us here. Thank you to Akshay and Jared for being on the chat with me. Thank you to Dan for showing off your self-added base thumb rest. That was probably not the best way. Thank you for your video, and also thank you for running behind the scenes. Thank you to Brian Turner for managing the people in the chat for us while I'm looking at the video conference with the rest of us. And lastly, thank you to Greg Studley for breaking down a bit of the Rush song. The rest of you, we will see you very soon, by very soon next week. So make sure you check out our Twitter and Facebook. We post the news articles that we have there. Twitter and Instagram, we are at Rocksmith Game. Facebook.com/Rocksmith is where you can find us there. And we will see you next week.